Everyone has a take on this one. Your relatives say buy, the finance subreddit say rent and put the rest in index funds. You don't know who to trust anymore. So let's stop arguing. Ryan rents. Derek buys. Same paycheck, same city, same budget. They both think the other guy is throwing money away, but neither of them ever actually crunched the numbers past month one. So we did. Rent hikes, mortgage interest, property taxes, upkeep costs, home appreciation, opportunity cost, everything. And when you lay it all out flat, one of them is quietly stacking wealth, while the other is slowly bleeding it. The gap after 10 years isn't even in the same ballpark. Let's keep this honest. Ryan and Derek both pull in $58,000 a year. Same mid-sized American city, both have $65,000 saved. Both want the same thing, a 3-bedroom in a solid neighborhood with a reasonable commute. Derek buys a $320,000 home. He puts 20% down, his entire $65,000, and locks in a 30-year fixed mortgage at 6.8%. His monthly principal and interest payment comes out to around $1,660. Stack on property taxes at about $270 a month, and homeowner's insurance at $140, and Derek is spending roughly $2,070 every month before a single repair is made. Ryan rents a comparable place for $1,500 a month, no down payment. He takes his $65,000 and puts it into a broad market index fund, averaging 8% annually. His monthly housing cost is $570 less than Derek's. No mortgage, no property tax bill, no maintenance calls, and a growing portfolio sitting in the background. On paper, Ryan looks like the sharpest guy in the room, but there's something Ryan hasn't figured out yet. Every dollar Derek pays is quietly purchasing a piece of something real. Every dollar Ryan pays evaporates the second it clears his bank account. That distinction, compounded across years, is worth much more than $570 a month. For the first 3 years, Ryan is living without friction. The water heater fails, he calls the property manager. Ceiling starts leaking, that's on the landlord. Refrigerator dies mid-summer, someone shows up within 48 hours, and Ryan doesn't write a single check. His costs are rent, renter's insurance at around $18 a month, and utilities. No curveballs, no 5-figure repair surprises, and his $65,000 investment at 8% annual returns has quietly grown to about $81,900 by the end of year 3. He hasn't added a cent, it's just compounding in the background. Derek, different story. Closing costs hit him for roughly $9,600 on day one. Appraisal, title insurance, origination fees, then property taxes kick in, insurance premiums start, and maintenance runs 1 to 2% of the home's value each year. That's $3,200 to $6,400 annually just to keep the place intact. And here's the part that really stings. In the early years of a 6.8% mortgage, nearly all of your payment goes to interest. In year 1, Derek pays about $19,900 in mortgage payments. Around $16,900 of that goes straight to the lender as interest. Only $3,000 actually chips away at what he owes. That interest disappears just like rent does, except nobody frames it that way. Let's total year 3. Ryan has paid roughly $54,000 in rent and holds an $81,900 index fund. Derek has spent over $140,000 between his mortgage, closing costs, taxes, insurance, and upkeep, with only around $10,200 in equity actually billed through principal payments. Through year 3, Ryan is winning, and it's not subtle. Then, Ryan's lease renews. Rent jumps 4%. That's $60 more a month, barely noticeable. $1,500 becomes $1,560. The next year, $1,622, then $1,687. Each bump feels manageable on its own. It's never enough to make Ryan pick up and move. It's just enough to quietly squeeze his budget a little more every single year. Now look at Derek's mortgage. $1,660 in principal and interest, same number as month 1, same number as month 120, same number as month 360. For 30 years, that line item doesn't budge. This is the mechanism most people walk right past. Rent is a variable expense that only trends one direction. A mortgage is a fixed cost that inflation slowly makes cheaper in real terms. In year 1, Derek's payment feels like a stretch. By year 10, it feels routine. By year 20, it feels almost light. Ryan's rent does the exact opposite, starts comfortable and gets heavier every single year. Ryan's $1,500 rent growing at 3.5% per year becomes roughly $2,000 by year 10, about $2,680 by year 20, and approximately $3,590 by year 30. Derek is still paying $1,660. Something starts shifting around year 4, and by year 6, the math has quietly flipped. Derek's home has been appreciating. U.S. home values have historically grown at around 3 to 4% annually. At 3.5% per year, Derek's $320,000 house is worth about $370,000 by the end of year 6. His mortgage balance has dropped to around $285,000. That means Derek is sitting on roughly $85,000 in equity, net worth that didn't exist 6 years ago. But here's what makes it even more interesting. Derek didn't put $85,000 into that house. He put $65,000 down. The rest came from appreciation on a $320,000 asset he controls with a $65,000 stake. That's leverage, and it's the single biggest financial advantage homeowners hold over renters that almost never comes up in the monthly payment debate. Derek is earning appreciation on $320,000, not just on his $65,000. His money is working nearly 5 times as hard as Ryan's. Ryan's index fund has done well too, assuming he hasn't dipped into it, and that's a real assumption. His $65,000 has compounded to about $103,000 at 8% annually by year 6. That's a solid $38,000 gain. But Ryan only earns returns on what he actually invested. No leverage, no multiplier. And his rent has now crept past $1,700 a month, closing in on what Derek pays total. Except, Derek's payment keeps building equity. Ryan's keeps buying him another month in someone else's building. The scoreboard is tightening, and the trend from here runs only in one direction. The monthly rent figure is the number your brain locks onto. It's on the listing, it's in the lease. It feels like the cost. What you don't see is where that number goes over the next decade, 2 decades, a lifetime. Rent never ends. There is no month 361 where the bill stops coming. There is no payoff date. There is no finish line. At 35, you pay rent. At 55, you pay rent. At 72, retired and living on a fixed income, you still pay rent. And that rent is dramatically higher than it was when you were 35. Real numbers. Ryan's $1,500 at 3.5% annual growth becomes roughly $2,000 by year 10, about $2,680 by year 20, and approximately $3,590 by year 30. At the exact moment Derek makes his last mortgage payment and starts living in his home essentially for free, Ryan is writing a check for over $3,500 a month to a landlord. And the money is only part of it. Renting means you don't control your housing situation. Your landlord can sell the building. They can decline to renew your lease. They can change the rules, raise the rent beyond your budget, or let the property slide because maintenance cuts into their returns. You're building your life, your kids' schools, your morning commute, your neighborhood on a foundation someone else owns. They can pull it out from under you with 60 days' notice. None of that means renting is the wrong call, but the true cost of renting isn't just the monthly figure, it's the lifetime total, plus the control you hand over along the way. If I only showed you the dark side of renting, I wouldn't be giving you the full picture. Buying has real costs too. Closing costs run $8,000 to $16,000 before you ever turn the key. Maintenance is relentless. A new roof runs $9,000 to $16,000. An HVAC system is $5,500 to $11,000. A foundation issue can hit $15,000 and ruin an entire year. Plan on 1 to 2% of your home's value every year and keep your fingers crossed. Property taxes can climb even when your mortgage stays fixed. And your equity? It's locked inside the walls. You can't spend it on an emergency or use it for anything without taking on more debt. To fully access it, you have to sell. And that means 5 to 6% in agent commissions, another round of closing costs, and hoping the market hasn't dropped at the worst possible moment. Real estate is an illiquid asset, and illiquid assets become dangerous when life doesn't cooperate with your plan. Here's where the full picture comes together. Over 10 years, Ryan has spent roughly $207,000 on rent and renter's insurance. He owns nothing. But his $65,000 index fund, untouched at 8%, has grown to around $140,300. Derek has spent roughly $305,000. Mortgage payments, taxes, insurance, maintenance, closing costs. But his home is now worth approximately $451,000, and his mortgage balance has dropped to about $268,000. That's $183,000 in equity sitting in his driveway. Ryan, $207,000 spent, $140,300 in investments. Derek, $305,000 spent, $183,000 in equity. Net it out, and Derek is $40,000 to $65,000 ahead, and the gap compounds from here. Every year that passes, Derek's balance shrinks, his home value rises, and Ryan's rent climbs. By year 30, Derek makes his final payment and owns his home outright, a home that could be worth over $750,000. His monthly housing cost drops to taxes, insurance, and the occasional repair, maybe $650 a month. Ryan, at year 30, is still writing a check for over $3,500 a month for the rest of his life. I'd be lying if I said buying always wins. There are specific situations where renting is the clearly smarter financial move. If you're staying fewer than 5 years, buying almost always loses. Closing costs going in, agent fees going out, and minimal equity built in the early years means you'll likely come out behind. The break-even point on most purchases is 5 to 7 years. Don't stay that long, and renting wins easily. If you live in a very high-cost market, think Seattle, New York, or parts of coastal California, the price-to-rent ratio can be so distorted that buying simply doesn't pencil out. When a home costs $1.4 million but rents for $3,800 a month, the numbers don't favor buyers. And if your career demands flexibility, or if you're the rare person who takes every dollar saved by renting and invests it consistently without ever touching it, the investment discipline required to make the rent and invest strategy actually work is something most people can't sustain for a decade or more. Renting as a deliberate strategy is smart. Renting as the default you never actually examine is expensive. Derek and Ryan both made their choices convinced they were being rational. Ryan figured he was staying nimble, letting his money work in the market. Derek figured he was building something, but neither of them ever ran the numbers past the first year. Derek came out ahead, not because buying is always the right call. He came out ahead because he locked in a fixed cost in a world where almost everything else keeps getting more expensive. He came out ahead because leverage let his $65,000 earn returns on a $320,000 asset. He came out ahead because every single payment moved him one step closer to a finish line. And after 30 years, his housing cost dropped to almost nothing, while Ryan's kept climbing. The real trap isn't renting. The real trap isn't buying either. The real trap is making a $320,000 decision based on a monthly number without ever asking what it actually costs you over 10 years, 20 years, a lifetime. And the next time your lease renewal lands in your inbox with a 4% increase that feels like nothing, run the numbers, because that 4% doesn't feel like nothing when you stack it up across 30 years. That's the only math that actually matters.